What is up, golf addicts? Welcome to the Tour Junkies show on the Better Sports Network. And, well, let's see. Not a whole lot's going on in the golf world today. Well, you may notice it's just me, and DB's not here because he's on vacation. And guess what happens when DB goes on vacation? The whole golf world blows up. It just blows up. And I got to deal with it, which I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying this. But you may have heard a little piece of news out there in the golf world that the PGA Tour and LIV Golf are merging. And this is a bombshell on the world of golf today. It is exciting news, I believe, but also a little bit confusing news. And there's just a lot to digest here, all right? But basically what we're getting here is we're getting the DP Tour, we're getting the PGA Tour, and we're getting LIV Golf. And they're just all coming together. They're all joining hands. They're all joining hands and just, getting all excited and having a great old time. And we're going to get to enjoy it. I think the best thing about this is that we're going to see the best players in the world at all the events. But there is a ton that we have to look at, I mean, this is something that is a complete shock to almost everybody. As a matter of fact, it's a shock to the players. I mean, we have really seen that these players, if you're looking at social media, and I want to get into some social media stuff here, where, we'll see some reaction from the players here. And there's one there with Colin Morikawa. He is certainly, he was shocked like a lot of these players were. But I think before we get into what the players' reaction was, let's get a little clip of the commissioner who is really he's seriously in the spotlight and the target today of a lot of different thoughts, I might say. But let's hear from him as he talks about this today in this announcement. It's Commissioner Jay.
Today is it's a historical day for the PGA Tour and the game of golf. And it's a historical day for the PIF and the DP World Tour. And you're right. There's been a lot of tension in our sport over the last couple of years. But what we're talking about today is coming together to unify the game of golf, and to do so under one umbrella. And David, the way that we're doing that is we're creating a for-profit LLC that the PIF is going to invest in alongside the DP World Tour. And together, we're going to move forward and we're going to take efforts to grow and expand this great game and to take it to new heights. And so what's happened today, and to your earlier question, is we've recognized that together, we can have a far greater impact on this game than we can working apart. And I give Yasser great credit for coming to the table, coming to the discussions with an open heart and an open mind. We did the same, and the game of golf is better for what we've done here today.
Well, I think there's a lot that you can look at there when Jay Monahan's talking. First off, he just sounds really like a politician. I mean, he has a lot of good words that he says, and the thing is, the business side of this, I think, is all yet to be really understood. I mean, you hear things like the PIF, which is a public investment fund, very original name there, by the way, but it's the Saudi Public Investment Fund. And, they're involved with LIV, and then them coming together for the greater good of golf. And I do think in general, this is a good thing for the greater good of golf. I know there's a lot of different criticism on how they got here. There's a lot of different criticism on, how Jay Monahan really specifically took this, I guess, threat, you might say, from LIV Golf early on. And then now he's kind of going back on that with, his comments before, whether you want to get into the politics of it or not. There were some politics involved here, and he was sort of all in. And a lot of these players went all in too. I mean, guys like Rory, he was one that was, kind of led out there to do the PGA Tour's work and just sort of, kind of left out a little bit here when you think about the fact that these tour players really had no clue that this was even going to happen. I messaged back with two players, one actually on the PGA Tour now and one on LIV. Both of them texted back to me that they did not know about this at all. One of them did say he thought it was in the works now for a couple years, which makes sense to me. But in the fact of the matter is, these players were not involved with this deal. And that is very obvious when all we really heard from the tour's side of things for the last few years was how this is the players' tour. They make, they can direct how it needs to go, but that's not necessarily what happened here. I think as a fan of golf, for me, I go back to the fact that in the end, I do want the best product out there for fans, and I think this will lead to that. And so all the other stuff that led us to this point, you can argue back and forth, you can put hate on Jay Monahan, you can hate the Saudis, whatever you want to do, but in the end, at least we are potentially getting what could be a great golf product for us fans and growing the game. And I think growing the game is a little bit of an overused word at times. But hopefully, I tend to be a positive guy in general and not see the negative in things. And I hope that the intent here is for the global growth of the game and to make it better for all of us. So we'll see what happens there. But I do want to look at a few player reactions that we saw here immediately following these announcements. Colin Morikawa right there. I love finding out morning news on Twitter, which I think a lot of people did, either by text. I probably had 100 texts about this just within the first 30 minutes. He said, and everyone thought yesterday was big. Then you got Dylan Wu, who goes out there and just scorched earth Dylan Wu, which I never expected. Of all the people that are going to go scorched earth, or at least all the players, I didn't expect Dylan Wu. But he does talk about, tell me why Jay Monahan basically got a promotion to CEO of all of golf in the world by going back on everything he said the past 2 years. The hypocrisy, wish golf worked like that. I guess money always wins. And I hate to tell you this, Dylan Wu, but yes, in this case, money always wins, and in most cases. But he did go all in on this. So these players in general, I think, are a little bit upset. Now, some of it was kind of funny. You had Brooks Koepka, asking for a welfare check on Brandel Chambly, which I kind of tweeted about that too. And I did hear a little bit before I came on to do this show that Brandel was on the Golf Channel for the first time talking about this. So we don't have that clip yet, but I feel like he has like some puffy eyes, some red, like what do you think, Tony? Tony, don't you think he had like some puffy eyes with maybe some tears coming down a little bit? He had like a tissue in his hand. He had that like sort of moist tissue in his hand while he was talking. That's what I'm picturing.
My first reaction in hearing the news was exactly like, where does Brandel fit in? The, Eamon Lynch, the guys, even Jay Monahan, the guys who have been so outspoken about where the money comes from, where like the morality of LIV Golf and the PIF and all of this stuff. And now it's just a complete 180, kind of like what Dylan Wu was saying there. Like, how do you put your faith and trust in a commissioner like that to lead the tour? Where, hey, even like what Jay Monahan said, maybe 5-10 years from now, we're going to be looking at this and the same way, and golf probably will be in a better spot, and all the different changes and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, just the here and now of it is, it seems like it's a complete 180-degree turn. And like you said, just the politician answers, the non-answers to a question. It's, I don't know. It's a very exciting, confusing, crazy just day in the world of golf.
It really is. And probably when you're thinking about the world of golf in general, at least it's got to be up there as one of the top news days and transformation days in the world of golf. And I think, I like to try and give people a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. I think Jay Monahan, it's tough to do that, but for me, for me personally, when LIV first happened, I was fairly against it. Not necessarily from a political standpoint. I just didn't like the division in golf, and I didn't really like the product that we were probably going to get with LIV. It was just, I'm a traditionalist. I liked the meritocracy of the PGA Tour. I liked all those, traditional things. But then as you start to think about it and you move and you grow with it and you learn more about it and you watch it a little bit and you understand what these players were doing by going over to LIV, whether or not it was for the money or not, it kind of changed me a little bit. So I think maybe that, hopefully, that's what we possibly saw with Monahan. I don't know. And again, you also just saw a lot of money too. But in the end, this is what we have. This is what we have, and we're just going to see how we move forward. Now, another reaction of this came from my partner, David Barnett, and co-host. And David is on he's on vacation this week. He picked a wonderful week to go on vacation. And so DB, I don't ever think I've ever seen DB sleep in past 8:30 or 9 a.m. But he chose to sleep in until like 11 a.m. this morning and missed the first hour of all of this coming out. But he did have a reaction, so I need to bring up his reaction, Tony. Let's see what DB has to say here.
I just woke up at 10:40. I'm at the beach, I think.
Don't pan down.
I'm at the beach, I think, unless I'm on another planet which we've occupied somehow. And there are 70 text messages to me that the PGA Tour and the Saudi-backed evil LIV Tour have joined forces. What?
I literally have tears in my eyes.
Fantastic stuff from DB. That was a great reaction. I like how his wife, Mrs. DB, is giving him some direction. But yeah, he looked a little tired. Definitely rested. I don't know what he did last night. Had a little tan there. But yeah, so DB was obviously just as shocked. And I think there was a lot of people that had pretty much the same reaction to this. Maybe not in the exact same way. But yeah, DB got to wake up to a load of text messages his way. So yeah, I thought that was fantastic. There's some more fun things around this. And I think that, we're going to, for the next few days, especially leading up to the U.S. Open. I almost forgot we had the U.S. Open next week, where this is really going to be fun because we get to hear about this from all the players that'll be there at the U.S. Open. But so we're going to get some fun stuff. I think like today you get the initial reaction. You get some of the anger. We are going to have a PGA Tour, or the players are supposed to have a meeting this afternoon, but I'm hearing that even some agents are advising their players not even to go to the meeting and just to stay away from it. So I don't know what we're going to even get out of that. But, today is kind of like the shock and awe day. We're just sort of taking this all in. But then after today, that's when you really get into Twitter about, there's going to be a lot of funny stuff. But I do think we're seeing already some things that I think are interesting. One, the producer of Netflix Full Swing, which, everybody watched the first season, I feel like, the first real golf documentary that we've had that had some really good stuff in there. Well, he tweeted out that they were definitely recording. It says, "You better believe we were filming when this broke." #Full Swing, which is magnificent. I can't wait. I hope they had a camera on Rory. I really do. He is at the RBC Canadian Open this week, so I'm sure they had a camera on him, and I gotta see that. That'll be interesting to see what he says. And then, our good friend Jason Sobel, he tweeted out that there are already odds on what this league is going to be named. Okay. And you got some interesting ones in here, okay? And this is what happens, too, with the betting world. As soon as something breaks like this, we're going to have odds on it, okay? It doesn't matter what it is, all right? And we already got odds. The favorite, by the way, is the GGA, the Global Golf Association. I don't know if I'm a big fan of that. I don't know. Maybe, Tony, you got a few that you like in here. You got the World Golf Association is 6-1. By the way, the GGA is 4-1. That's the favorite. I hope we don't go there. You never know. Just like betting on tour, I don't want to ever go with the favorite. I want to get in the mid-range here. Like the Collective Golf Tour at 18-1. The Golf Enterprise Tour is at 18-1. Or we could go with the long shot. It's a rich man's world at 1,000-1. That's the IARMW. The IARMW Tour is 1,000-1. I have a good feeling that we're probably not gonna get that one, Tony. Do you have a favorite, Tony, in these odds for the new name?
I don't have a favorite. They just all sound like they're either like the straight to TV, made for TV movie of a generic golf movie, like of them just made up tour. Happy Gilmore, they have the gold jacket instead of the green jacket, the tour championship, that kind of thing. They just sound very, very plain and generic. It almost reminds me of like the 70s and 80s wrestling, when you had your different territories and all the different names, like the WWWF or whatever it was, all the different plays on just the words of golf, global, world, all that kind of thing. So don't have a favorite there, but just a little bit of what it reminded me of.
Yeah, what's interesting too is obviously once they have a name, they're going to have a logo, right? Or maybe they'll have a logo before a name. I don't know. But maybe, how when in some of these logos, like whether it's, sports or, whatever, a brand that everybody knows, there's always like some little secret picture in there that like not everybody can see, but then once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like, do you think Greg Norman came in as part of the deal and said, look, okay, I don't care what this logo is, but you better figure out a way to get a shark in there, that's kind of a subtle shark, that we're going to put in there. I don't know. Maybe he did that. Maybe not.
Somebody's going to be breaking that down once the logo comes out, like the numerology of the new logo for this world tour that we're about to see. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there, but a lot of interesting things I think down the road that are going to come with this. We're just we're just scratching the surface. There's a long way to go here, but we are going to come back. We're going to take a little bit of break, and when we come back, you talk about long. We had a very long day yesterday with U.S. Open qualifying. They call it the longest day in golf. And our buddy Ryan French over at Monday Q Info covered it all. He's a fantastic follow on Twitter. Does a great job, whether it's with the Monday qualifiers or the longest day in golf like we had yesterday. So we'll have him on. He's definitely going to have some reaction, I'm sure, to the news of today, and then we'll talk a bit about the U.S. Open qualifying. So come back right here on the Better Sports Network for the Tour Junkie Show.
What can we expect for you out there on the track tonight?
Listen, I have a wife, 2 kids, I have full-time jobs. I'm never nervous. I don't even know what that word means. Can you explain what nervous means? No. I'm ready to have fun. I've never done anything like this before. I got asked to be a part of this. This is fascinating. Like, it's so cool to just look around and see what goes on here. So I'm just excited to get out on the horse. And you want trash talk? Is that what you're asking me for? No trash talk. I hope everyone does well.
All right. Everyone's going to do well, but it has to be a winner. So give me your trifecta. Who's going to come in first, second, and third? Heat.
I will go Maria 1, me 2, Willie 3, Moose goes 4th.
Well, it's very simple. I won this event last year. I won my heat, and so the defending champ has to be the favorite. Now, that makes me a little nervous just because I feel like it's hard to repeat. There's a little pressure when you're the favorite, but that being said, I'm still optimistic.
So your heat, it's you,
yes.
Moose and Keith from Better Sports Network, and Willie Colon.
I think Keith might be my stiffest competition, and I asked for this because I actually recruited Keith, if you didn't know. So Keith, if you win, you're welcome.
Malusis is very good. I mean, he knows what he's doing, but I'm going to go with Maria.
Keith is waving to the crowd. He must pay attention because they're off. It's Mark Malusis going for the lead. Maria Marino on the outside, and now Keith Irizarry on the outside with speed, and they're 3 wide into the first turn. Woo! Mark Malusis is locked in for his life. 138 and 2. They're into the stretch. Sportscasters Derby 2. And still in front, Keith Irizarry. And now Mark Malusis is trying to squeeze on through.
Come on! Yeah! Come on! Let's go! Come on, kick it! Kick it! Yeah!
Keith Irizarry. Keith, you did it all the way, wire to wire, over Mark Malusis.
Awesome! That was so cool!
The champ is here! Keith, what was it like being out there? Adrenaline rush. You were doing the Instagram Live, so there was no panic. You looked cool, calm, collected the whole time, and you won it.
I felt really comfortable. I did. Like, I know you were joking with me before. Are you nervous? Are you whatever? What are you? David The driver was awesome. He's like, we're going to win this. I said, all right, let's win this. And he said, let's go. Yeah, I just felt really comfortable. I did. It was fun. We're in the lead. I got Maria Marino on the right side of me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to beat us, right? And then out of nowhere, you see Moose coming up this way, and we feel him breathing down our neck. And I'm like,
Moose
no,
on the loose. Watch
Moose.
out.
Moose was definitely on the loose, and we just got Moose by a neck, a nose, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, but again, all of this for a great cause, and it was absolutely awesome to do this. It was cool.
All right, Keith, congratulations. And no matter what, you could always hold this over Moose's head.
Making you money in daily fantasy sports and golf betting. Tour Junkies on Better Sports Network.
Our friends over at Fantasy Alarm have you covered with a full slate of MLB games tonight, and they've got a few player picks on Underdog Fantasy that can help you make a little bit of cash. Matt Olson of the Braves and Corey Seager of the Rangers, both over 1.5 bases tonight. I like that one. But it doesn't just stop with baseball. Fantasy Alarm covers 10 different sports. Get all pro access to Fantasy Alarm for the award-winning DFS playbook, fantasy football, and NFL betting, plus tools, podcasts, and their Discord chat. For a limited time, get all of this for 50% off your first 6 months with promo code ALARM50 at fantasyalarm.com. Start your free trial today. That is alarm50 at fantasyalarm.com. All right, welcome back into the Tour Junkies show on Better Sports Network. And it's a big day. And we got a guy that does a lot of golf coverage across the board. Very excited to have Ryan French, a.k.a. Monday Q Info on Twitter, to come join us. And listen, Ryan, we got a little bit of news today. So,
Yeah.
and I did see, by the way, a tweet from you that you were about to like shut down the computer after yesterday, and you were pretty much done. And I'm sitting there looking at this tweet, and I'm looking at the rundown I've got today, and I'm like, wait a second. Okay, I'm doing all this by myself because DB's out of town. And I got Ryan French. He's supposed to come on, but he's saying he's shutting the computer down. So I hope he comes on. But here you are. And so I'm going to, I'm so excited to talk to you for the first time on the Tour Junkies show. And I want to get your reaction to the news first, and then we'll talk about yesterday, the longest day in golf, because I'm fascinated also by what we get with the U.S. Open qualifying and what you do, week in and week out. But first, give me some of your reaction from today. What are you hearing from the players? I want to take it all in. Give it to me.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on. Fans of you guys for a long time. I appreciate it. Funny, informative. I love you guys. So thank you for having me on. You guys have been like OG followers, so thank you. But I stunned like all the rest of us. I just got off I was late for those listening. I was late. I apologize. But I was on the phone with Dylan Wu, and Dylan said he was in the PT trailer when he got a text from Nick Hardy that said, check your email. He was in the PT trailer with Matt Fitzpatrick. Matt Fitzpatrick, top 10 player in the world or whatever he is up there, had no idea. No one knew. There was 7 players in the trailer, and all of them are basically the same, frustrated with the transparency or lack of. The hypocrisy, all of those things. Like the tour just had this hard line stance forever.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what the players are saying is like, if this is what's best, so be it. But to march people, Rory out, all of us stand in line, all of us. I mean, it's pretty well known that Matt and Alex Fitzpatrick turned down a large contract. And he's in the PT trailer at the Canadian Open. And that's when he hears about this on Twitter. It's I'm stunned. I don't know what to say. I'm stunned.
Yeah, I agree. And I was like you. I mean, the first reaction we have as folks that cover golf, obviously we both have a lot of good contacts within the industry. So I texted a player on the tour, and I texted a player on the LIV tour also, and both of them, same thing. They just pretty much had zero clue that this was this was even happening. The LIV player I texted with, he did say that, he felt like this was in the works, but that doesn't really tell us all that much. Anybody could have said that, but it's again, I think that's the biggest thing today is the players just had absolutely no idea. And so it'll be interesting to see what their reactions are going to be out like once they get to talk to Jay Monahan. Now, I know there's a players meeting at 4, but is there really going to be a meeting? Because I've even seen some agents tweeting out that, hey, I've told my players not even to go to the meeting, don't be a part of all of that. So I even wonder if we're going to get anything out of this meeting anyway.
Dylan's take was that everybody's ready to go to the meeting, but it'll be super interesting to see what comes out of it. I mean, Dylan has said that, and other players I've spoke to, it's like a lot of times they just get up there and they have these preset statements, and they don't take a lot. It's not really productive. I think KVV tweeted it out, and Dylan and some other players that I've talked to. I mean, this just kills any notion that the PGA Tour is a player-run tour. I mean, it's just not. It's not. They have no power. No matter how you feel about this deal, whether it's good, whether you think it's good or bad, there's no argument that it lessens the power of the players themselves. It's put to bed the notion that the PGA Tour is any sort of player tour. It's not. It's a boardroom run tour and company just like any others.
Yeah, I agree. And as a matter of fact, as somebody, personally, I was somebody that wasn't necessarily against LIV from a political standpoint, but I just wasn't a big fan of breaking up the game and players being on separate tours and a little bit of getting rid of the meritocracy of some things. So I did have opinions in that way, but I was open-minded to what could come out of this. But I feel a little bit slighted as well as a fan of the PGA Tour, as a fan of the historical side of things with the PGA Tour, that a little bit of that was sort of like it was a slap in the face to me, because I believed all of that. Like, it's a player, I'm saying this, it's a player-driven tour. The players have the right here to do it, and there's a little bit of part of that feels slighted in that way also.
100%. I'm kind of with you. I've said always, like, I'm not a fan of LIV. Let's take the political side out of it. I know that's impossible to do, but let's just say from a golf perspective, I wasn't interested in LIV. Like 48 players, no cut fields are just not interesting to me. Team golf isn't interesting to me. But I also understand why players went. Like, you put enough money. I mean, Harold Varner said it perfectly. It's going to change generations of people that my family like. So I didn't have to agree with it, but I understood it. But I, I criticize the tour a lot. Obviously, I understand that, but like, I'm a fan of the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
I believed in the history. I believed in the things Jay said up there. Not entirely, not the sell job that Jay put on it, but man, I just don't know what a hypocrite he looks like. It's just stunning. It's stunning.
Yeah.
It's I'm with you. We were all duped. Players, agents, caddies, and fans and media. I mean, we're all duped.
Yeah. I mean, so with that said, like, how long, I get this question a lot, because obviously, and I'm sure you're on, tons of different text groups, and then especially the people who follow golf and know that we talk golf, day in and day out, they're always wanting our opinions, or they want to give us their opinions. But, most of what I'm seeing does tend to center around Jay Monahan. And how long is he going to last? I don't know. Maybe he's smart enough to build his contract in with LIV and these folks to have a little bit of staying power. But I don't know how long he can last with this much hatred being thrown his way, especially from the player standpoint.
Oh, I also think if Jay's smart, he knows that he's out, and he signed this deal with a lot of money up front.
Yeah.
There's no way that he doesn't know he's in trouble. But man, it's just, it's truly speechless. I don't know I don't know what to say. And just like you talking to the people no one does. Like I've talked to agents today, don't know what to say. Same like you said. I've asked multiple agents for their players to come on, and they're just like, Ryan, I would say yes. I don't know what to say, and we don't know what to say. So the answer is no, because I don't know. We don't even know. Like we're so stunned. We're kind of gathering what this all means.
Yeah. Well, I think, I believe this is truly one of the, probably if you're ranking the top transformational days in golf, this is probably number one. It's probably up there.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
You maybe put, like Tiger getting on tour is number two, like when he goes pro or something like that. But like this is it. So it's a huge day, and there's a lot to take in. And so I think it's hard for you and I to get on here and have all the right answers and all the right reactions right now. It's sort of like I feel like you and I both are processing it as it's, as this day is happening, which is fine. And I think, but over the next few days, it'll be interesting to see what else comes out, just to get the player reactions. And then, what do we have next week? The U.S. Open, right? So we're going to get a lot then, correct?
Yeah, and Andrew Putnam, put it out. There is no good time. There is no good time for this, meaning like it's going to dominate everything. But Andrew Putnam put out a tweet. I'm paraphrasing. He's like, "Oh, great! Now at the U.S. Open, this is all everybody's going to talk about, right?" And taking away from the.
Oh, did we lose him, Tony?
It's just sad. It's just it's wild and stunning. I don't know if it's sad. That's the like I say, sad, but I don't know if it's sad. It might not be sad.
It may not. Maybe as all this plays out, it's going to end up being a fantastic thing for golf in general. I feel like, and I said this earlier, this phrase "growing the game" is so overused. But I do hope that people that are in power here do have growing the game at the very heart of what they're trying to do. I believe in the good in people, and I hope that's what we're trying to get to. I hope that's what happens. But we'll see. Tony, did we lose him?
Hold up one sec, Pat. Yeah, I think he dropped completely. Oh, there we go.
There you go. Sorry, guys. Don't know what happened.
No worries. So, no, but what I'm saying though is I do think that in general, I hope this is about growing the game. I really do. But we'll see. Now, speaking of growing the game,
Let's talk about stuff. Yeah.
I personally believe you are one that really helps grow the game with what you do. I think it's fantastic. You highlight a lot of the stories that a lot of people don't see, whether it's with the Monday qualifiers or days like yesterday that we have with the U.S. Open qualifying. We call it the longest day. There's a ton that goes on. So I'll kind of throw it over to you with what we had yesterday. Really, I feel like it was one of your first times ever, like getting to fully cover this in a major way from all aspects. And so just kind of give me some of your highlights of the day and just some good things that you saw.
Yeah, I tweeted it out in the morning. There was a picture of guys on the range, and there's nothing like it in sports. You're talking about, no, it doesn't happen very often. Obviously, most of the players that get through are pros, but the dream, the opportunity to play in one of the biggest sporting events in a sport is just wild. I use this all the time. Somebody tweeted at yesterday, is like, there's no free throw contest to join the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. That's what this is. It's just so unique in sports. So 36 holes, play 36 good holes, and you're going to be in the U.S. Open. It's my favorite day. It's my Super Bowl, all of those things. And like always, some amazing stories happened yesterday.
Yeah, you saw a lot of different, we saw some of the regular names that are getting in. I think you saw, Nick Hardy was one that we love. We've had Nick Hardy on the show, shot 61, I believe, to qualify in Ohio. You had guys like Carlos Ortiz, who I'm pretty sure is a LIV guy that qualified as well, along with Sergio. Now, that was not today. Sergio qualified a week or so ago. But those were some of the stories. Anything else like kind of stand out with you? I know I saw you kind of go back and forth on a tweet there was, I believe, a 13-year-old who tried to qualify. And of course, anytime the kids try to qualify, we got to hate on the kids, Ryan. But what he did, he goes out and shoots 73, I think, in one of his rounds, which is pretty good.
Yeah, he shot like 73. I didn't see the last two holes, but it was like going to be like 75, 76 on a very difficult 13-year-old Jaden Sung. Amazing. But the probably my favorite and best story of the day is a guy I did a story on earlier in the year. His name's JJ Gray. Played small college golf, and then his best friend, a gentleman named Sam, took his own life. And they were best friends, and Sam's family refused to let JJ struggle financially playing professional golf. So Sam's family supports JJ, and yesterday JJ got through and will play in the U.S. Open. And those are the stories that make that day yesterday just absolutely the best there is. I talked to him yesterday. He had talked to the family that they obviously stay in touch often. They're going to come out to LA to watch. They have a foundation. So Sam's foundation, the gentleman who took his own life, is going to, get a ton of publicity. Like, this is why they do it, to honor their son, who they lost to early. And it's just amazing. It's what this day that, yesterday is made for. Stories exactly like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And, like you said, it's just amazing that these guys, across the country get to go and try and qualify and then get through to one of the biggest golf tournaments in the world. And, you just don't see that anywhere else in sports. And so it's an incredible thing. And, that's one of the things I love so much about the U.S. Open. Now, I did notice, Michael Block did not qualify. I know he's been, quite polarizing in the news these days. But any Michael Block stories coming out? Or I know his son was also trying to qualify as well. So
yeah, his son broke his driver over his knee, supposedly, allegedly. Yeah, Michael struggled early, and I honestly stopped watching his score, and then I looked later in the day, and he had really got it back. But another good story out of Columbus. So I had tweeted out, Columbus is by far the best site. It's basically a PGA Tour event because everybody comes from Memorial who isn't in the U.S. Open and goes to the Columbus because it's right there. There was over 10,000 combined PGA Tour starts in the field, over $600 million worth of PGA Tour earnings in the field. I mean, it was ridiculous. Both Ryder Cup captains, Stuart Sink, who qualified, was there. I mean, a ridiculously good field. And the guy who won is Olin Brown Jr. Now, most people know Olin Brown Sr.
Yes.
But Olin Brown Jr. has played professional golf for 12 years on tours that most people have never, ever heard of. And the U.S. Open will be his first PGA Tour start. And he was the medalist. Beat a field filled with, I think there was 79 PGA Tour wins in the field. And Olin Brown, who has played professionally for 12 years, never won anything outside of a small mini tour event, was medalist. So that's the U.S. Open qualifying day. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's incredible stuff. I've always wondered, and maybe you know the answer to this. Like, I know I get it with like these tour players are coming, they're at the Memorial, so they're in Ohio. So I feel like those sites there's obvious reasons that's where they're qualifying. But is everything else? I mean, do you get, if you make it through to final qualifying, do you get to choose your site, or is it more regional based off of where you are and where you can travel to?
Yeah, they try to give you your site that you pick. You pick your choices. It's always a secret, and it's always, there's a lot of conspiracy theorists about, who gets what. Obviously, tour players get what they want, understandably. And then from what I've heard, and again, it's a lot of secrets, is depending on who you finish in locals and where you're from and those kind of things, they try to regionalize you. But there's people that are from Wisconsin playing in Washington from time to time or whatever. But you have a choice, but you don't really have a choice.
Yeah. I've always just kind of wondered that. Another thing that I'll highlight is you had a great video on Twitter. I thought it should have gotten more play. Okay,
Sure.
your Twitter account, by the way, a case of the golf one and I get the Summer Hazes all mixed up. I know there's Boyd. I think it was Preston though, knocking in a putt for Eagle, and the putt looks like it's 2 feet away from actually dropping, and he's already just holding up his hands like this. That was a great video. I haven't looked to see how many people have viewed that today, but there should be a lot because it's amazing.
Yeah, it got it started to pick up steam. It was late in the day, and I tweeted about 10,000 times yesterday, so understandably it wasn't. But I mean, I tried to take a screenshot and then I got distracted. But he's definitely starting he did a how's that like shrug of the shoulders, and he started it 2 feet out, and it I mean Eagles the last to get into a playoff and then won the playoff this morning. I mean, and there's a million Summer Hazes. I don't know how to keep them straight. There's Boyd and Daniel, and there's coaches and teachers and players and caddies and sisters and brothers. There's 97 Summer Hazes out playing professionally somewhere.
Well, they're all good. All right. Well, listen, Ryan, I really appreciate you coming on and joining me. I know you had a busy, long day yesterday, and today has also been busy for you. Real quick, tell the folks where they can find all of your stuff, what you got coming down the road, just anything you want to plug.
Yeah, no, mondayq.com. Go check it out. You can subscribe, sign up for the newsletter, all the things, Case of the Golf One or Monday Q Info on Twitter. And thanks for having me on. You guys are awesome and supported me for a long time, and I appreciate it very much.
Well, we love what you do. Now get a little rest, all right? Go.
We're going to try. I was going to take today off. It's not the right day to take off. You know what I mean?
No, well, it'll have to be tomorrow for you. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks,
all
guys.
Right. Thank you, Ryan. All right. That's Ryan French. Fantastic stuff hearing about, his thoughts on this whole PGA Tour and LIV merger, which is obviously the major talk of today, but then giving us a little insight into the U.S. Open qualifying, the longest day in golf that we had yesterday. So, all right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then in the next segment, we got to talk, I guess, about the RBC Canadian Open. All right? They're actually going to play some golf this week, I think, unless these tour players all walk out. Hopefully they don't. But they are going to play some golf, so we'll give you some course information. We'll talk about some of my favorites on the board, maybe give you a couple first-round leader bets, a quick just the tip, and then I'll go over our DFS cash lineup for the week. So come back right here on the Better Sports Network for the Tour Junkie Show.
So let's get into some best ball philosophy here.
Yeah.
In your experience, going back many, many, many years, drafting in national tournaments, Bradley, have you historically been shying away from the running back position in favor of wide receivers, in favor of, if you're drafting in the FFPC tight end premium format, in favor of tight ends as well? Is that the smart play when you're drafting this early in the drafting season?
Yeah, so taking value is going to be huge, and looking at like running backs and wide receivers, like you want to take a look at how the structure is. So you mentioned earlier the FFPC has a couple different types, like they've got super flex and one quarterback, and so that's going to change your strategy a little bit if you have only 2 wide receivers or if you're drafting 3 wide receivers. And of course the PPR is a different aspect compared to other formats or other tournaments, and so keeping in mind the pass catching upside of some of the running backs may be more valuable in those formats. So the Austin Eckler's, the Christian McCaffreys may be more value because they get more receptions. And so, like, I loved taking late shots a couple of years ago on, like, the J.D. McKissicks of the world, who would get 50 receptions really cheaply. So that's something to consider. But when it comes to like overall value, like you're drafting, you're in the middle of a draft, and you just noticed that, I don't know, maybe it's Chris Godwin has fallen 14 spots, but Chris Godwin was not in your plans to be drafting. Like maybe you don't have a strong player take on Chris Godwin, or we're not like, my take is that I don't think the Bucs are going to be particularly good this year. But for him to be dropping, let's say 14 spots is more than a full round. And based on the data that we've seen, if you get to draft a player more than 12 spots ahead or behind ADP, so they drop 12 or more spots, you have an 84% edge over the rest of the tournament players who are drafting this player, because typically this player isn't going to drop. The average draft position is a really strong indicator of where a player is going to go. And I think that is also on the flip side. If you are reaching too much, you're giving up value in your drafts. And so when it comes to value-based drafting, you need to consider, just because this guy isn't my plans or I don't have a strong player take on him, maybe that's your opportunity to sprinkle in some shares of this player at a good price.
Now back to Tour Junkies.
Damn it! Hit one good fucking iron shot.
I don't think you like that one.
On Better Sports Network.
Welcome back to the Tour Junkies show on Better Sports Network. I am your host, Pat Perry, and you know what? It's been a great show. What an amazing day in the golf world. But, we got to talk a little bit about actual golf being played at the RBC Canadian Open. So listen, I am excited about this golf tournament. We do have a pretty good field. It's a little bit top heavy, but it is a good field that we have this week. And they're on a new course. So let's talk a little bit about the course this week, because they have not been here yet for the Canadian Open. They are at Oakdale Golf Club, and here are just some basics about this course. All right, it's a par 72, just under 7,400 yards. You got not a whole lot of water hazards out here. Only comes into play on a couple holes. Bent grass fairways. That means they're going to be absolutely pure. We should get some great lies for these guys as long as you're hitting fairways. The rough is Kentucky bluegrass. They do tend to grow it up a little bit. So I think we could see some, emphasis on driving accuracy. And then we've got bent grass greens this week. So in general, when I'm looking at bent grass greens, I want to see the guys that putt long-term well on bent grass, but then also just like great putters in general, because, bent grass greens are pure. They don't tend to get like grainy in the afternoons or anything like that. So you just want like good all around putters. And I think this could be a little bit of a putting contest this week. If I'm looking at sort of the ideal player, I feel like total driving is the first stat that I want to look at. So guys that are long off the tee, but also accurate. All right. So you want to look at those guys that are in the, tops as far as the stats are concerned with total driving. But I do think this could get into a little bit of a wedge fest. You got a lot of short irons into some of these greens, some long irons for sure, but definitely a little bit of a wedge fest. And then you get on these greens and you got to make a lot of putts. There's going to be a lot of scoring here. We typically see that in the Canadian Open, even though the rough's going to be up and some people could be missing some fairways. I still think there's going to be a ton of birdies out there. So I want to look at my birdie or better stats, par 5 scoring, that kind of stuff. Those are the things that I'm looking at as far as, the guys I'm looking to potentially bet outright. At the top of the board, you've got guys like Rory, who is in the field. He is at plus 500. You've got Tyrrell Hatton, who's at plus 1,100, and Sam Burns at 14-1. Now, I don't like to bet any of those guys. Maybe Hatton, kind of like Hatton a little bit. I think if I'm looking at the top of the board, I think Justin Rose is a sneaky play up here at 18-1. I think Shane Lowry, I'm just going to continue to bet Shane Lowry until he finally wins at 20-1. And same with Tommy Fleetwood. Probably going to bet him again, just because I'm just going to maybe Tommy will win because he's not technically in the United States, or he's not in the United States, and he wins everywhere outside of the United States. So maybe that's what we'll get, is a Tommy Fleetwood win this week, and he is at 20-1. There's a few longer shots that I think are very interesting this week. I always want to try to bet a Canadian at the RBC Canadian Open. Now, one hasn't won in like 60 years, but Adam Svensson to me at 55-1 is the best bet to win. I know Connors is the favorite of the Canadians up at 18-1, but I feel like when you get into a putting contest that I don't want any part of Corey Connors. Svensson burned a lot of people last week, didn't make the cut. I had him. But I do think this could be a better week for him. He is at 55-1. He's another one. Now, we also get Ludwig Aberg. This is his first tour event as a pro. He's played a tour event before. I believe it was at the Arnold Palmer Invitational at Bay Hill. But this is his first one as a pro, and he's at 55-1. So they're loving this dude. It's like, Rose Zhang last week made her tour, LPGA tour debut and won. She won. And she was right. She was about the same. I think she was 45-1. So it'll be interesting to see that. Now, if you're looking at that, and you're thinking about your bets this week, it kind of moves in a little bit. And I do have a couple first round leaders, but I got to talk about my just the tip. Okay. Now, listen, there's a lot of golf news out there if you haven't heard. And so I didn't really have much time to think about just the tip. So here's what I'm going to do. I think there's all these things. We got a lot of golf tournaments, folks. A lot. Okay. Maybe that's one thing we can ask for with this new merger is just a few less. Okay. But here's the thing, sometimes you got to just dial it back. I don't care whether it's DFS, betting, whatever. Take a little break, kind of like DB's doing and being on vacation this week. Maybe still throw a few bets out there for the Canadian, play some DFS. I get it. But, it's never a bad thing to just reset for a week. All right. Just kind of assess things, even if, I know golf is always going on and you feel like you got to throw all these bets in and you feel like you got to put all these DFS lineups. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to dial it back. All right. You don't have to do everything the same every single week. So, that's just a tip this week is we're just going to take a break. We're going to breathe a little bit. It's a big news week anyway. And then you get to refresh for the US Open next week. Okay. So that's what we're going to do. That's the tip. All right. A few quick first round leader bets. Eric Cole, I like at 55-1. Eric Cole's been on fire all year long. Checks all the boxes I just talked about earlier in the course preview. Nikolai Højgaard is another one. He is at 65-1 as a first round leader. I like him as well. The dude can go low. He's a definite scorer. And then I got a long shot for you. Marty Dew is at 120-1. I don't remember which event it was, but a few weeks ago, I believe he started out really hot, had a first round lead, or at least was close to it. So Marty Dew, and he's got plenty of experience, on the Korn Ferry Tour and some on the PGA Tour for in a field like this where you do have some top heavy guys. But I think a guy like Marty Dew, who's a great player, can do well, especially in the first round. So he is at 120-1. All right, we got a couple minutes left. So, we're going to have to talk about our DFS cash lineup for the week. Now, last week cashed. That's 2 in a row. 2 in a row. So last week did cash. And so we're on a little bit of a hot streak, I think, because it was a little bit cold. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start, and I'm going to start in the 9K range with my guy Shane Lowry at 9,400. I think Shane's just going to have a good week. He's a good, solid player. By the way, he's top 5 in this field when I was looking at it in total driving, which I mentioned earlier. Then I'm going to go to Eric Cole at 7,900. He's just been playing so well. So I got to go with Eric Cole. I think he's a very solid cash play. I'm going to drop down a little bit. I'm going to go into kind of this I'm going to go into the lower 7K range and go with a guy that I think has just been on fire. I believe he's made his 5 or 6 straight cuts in a row with several top 25 finishes in here. So he's got a lot of upside. Mark Hubbard is at 7,300. That gives us 8,400 now. So now I get to get a little bit more expensive here. And I really love sort of the mid to low 8K range, and that's where I think I'm going to live in a lot of these, cash lineups. So I'm going to go with Nikolai Højgaard, who I also mentioned as a first-round leader. I'll go with him. I'm dropping down to Brendan Todd next at 7,900. Brendan Todd, listen, he's not exciting. I get it. All right, he hits a lot of fairways, hits a lot of greens, but he can go low. All right. I've seen him win golf tournaments at like 24 under before. Okay. So this guy can score. Yes, I know he can be a little bit boring and whatever else, but I don't care. I want a guy like that. I want a guy that can make cuts too. He is at 7,900. That's going to leave me with 9,100. So I got a little money to spend. And up there, you got guys like Cooch, whatever else, Keith Mitchell. But I think, you know what? I'm just going to go with the Canadian. I got to get a Canadian in here. I'm going to leave some money on the table, go with Adam Svensson there. He's made 15 of 20 cuts this year. So I like him. So there you go. That is the cash lineup. Eric Cole, Nikolai Højgaard, Mark Hubbard, Shane Lowry, Adam Svensson, and Brendan Todd. Boom. All right, we're done. It's been a fantastic show. I appreciate all of you listening. We will be back next week. DB will be back hosting for the U.S. Open at LA Country Club. So I hope you have a great week. That's all I got. Out!
So let's get into some best ball philosophy here.
Yeah.
In your experience, going back many, many, many years, drafting in national tournaments, Bradley, have you historically been shying away from the running back position in favor of wide receivers? In favor of, if you're drafting in the FFPC tight end premium format, in favor of tight ends as well. Is that the smart play when you're drafting this early in the drafting season?
Yeah, so taking value is going to be huge, and looking at like running backs and wide receivers, like you want to take a look at how the structure is. So you mentioned earlier the FFPC has a couple different types, like they've got super flex and one quarterback, so that's going to change your strategy a little bit if you have only 2 wide receivers or if you're drafting 3 wide receivers. And of course, the PPR is a different aspect compared to other formats or other tournaments. And so keeping in mind the pass catching upside of some of the running backs may be more valuable in those formats. So the Austin Ecklers, the Christian McCaffreys may be more value because they get more receptions, and so like I loved taking late shots a couple years ago on like the JD McKissicks of the world, who would get 50 receptions really cheaply. So that's something to consider. But when it comes to like overall value, like you're drafting, you're in the middle of a draft, and you just notice that, I don't know, maybe it's Chris Godwin has fallen 14 spots, but Chris Godwin was not in your plans to be drafting. Like maybe you don't have a strong player take on Chris Godwin, or my take is that I don't think the Bucs are going to be particularly good this year. But for him to be dropping, let's say 14 spots, is more than a full round. And based on the data that we've seen, if you get to draft a player more than 12 spots ahead or behind ADP, so they drop 12 or more spots, you have an 84% edge over the rest of the tournament players who are drafting this player. Because typically this player isn't going to drop. The average draft position is a really strong indicator of where a player is going to go. And I think that is also on the flip side. If you are reaching too much, you're giving up value in your drafts. And so when it comes to value-based drafting, you need to consider, just because this guy is in my plans or I don't have a strong player take on him, maybe that's your opportunity to sprinkle in some shares of this player at a good price.